welcome. You are in Gettin along with the mayor, the city manager, etc., all of them. This session is being recorded, and I will let you know that this session is about politics. So Richard and I have put some questions together. This is going to be a very interactive session. This is not going to be either of us up here talking about what you already know. We're more interested in some answers to some questions and some things that might be working for you in your community or not working for you in your community. Because we know that there's plenty of communities in Nebraska where things may not be ideal. I guess is what I'm going to say. So Richard? So here's one of our first questions. As a library director, are you invited into the politics of your city? Or do you just get swept up into the politics of your city? Those are two different questions. So how many of you are invited into the politics of your city? By your city administrator, by your mayor? Anybody? Okay. Lupe, you want to talk a little bit about how you're invited?
We have administrative meetings of all department heads and the mayor on a weekly basis, every Monday and go over department problems, department concerns, mayoral concerns, city administrative concerns.
So is the mayor at your department head meeting?
Yes.
Anybody else go to department head meetings? Helpful?
No.
I didn't say that.
Yeah. Okay, well, Lupe just made a really good point. Say that a little bit louder.
I didn't say mine were helpful either.
But he is being invited into the
there.
politics? Okay.
You're hearing what people are, the problems other people are having. And it isn't helpful for them either. That's what I understand.
Yeah, we have one too every week before the council meeting. But I wouldn't consider it an invitation into the politics. It's an invitation to report what your department is doing and ask for other departments for help. But sometimes it's to leave the politics out of it and focus on the facts.
Okay, Lisa? Do you want to say anything?
Sometimes I don't feel it's a good use of any of the manager's time because a lot of the things that are discussed with each department head during the meeting are something that the mayor could address individually that don't have anything to do with the other departments. The other thing is there's an issue, and this is probably with every administrative or library that has administrative board, where the mayor found out that he isn't my direct supervisor, so he doesn't know what to do with me. And so as a courtesy, he's inviting me to the meetings, but as we don't have very much staff in our library, so we do it once a month on the week before the council meeting. He has them, and I don't have someone to cover the library. So when I do have someone to cover, I will attend, and when I can't, I don't. But the last one I attended, I wasn't even on. The library wasn't even on the agenda. So I think it's kind of, and there's some tension going on between the library and the mayor.
And you have a governing board.
We have a governing board.
But the tension is about the mayor found out that you
Right. Well,
he doesn't have
even when they did they did a personnel policy, or they created a personnel policy manual a few years back before this mayor, and even the the person that we hired to help us with that had put that the library director was an appointed position by the mayor, and so we had to go back, and I said this is wrong, and so they just recently revised the personnel manual, and they had to go and change that, and I think that brought attention to that. So,
because the manual had to go back to city council for approval because
Right.
of LB470.
and that's not even that wasn't the only change in the personnel manual.
Sure.
They had to update it on other things, but so I wonder if that, because we did hire a consultant. I don't know what year was that, the LB470.
2 years ago.
Okay, because we did our personnel manual for the first time. The city did a personnel manual or created one before that.
Sure.
So.
But the guy just got it wrong.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah, he just got it wrong,
Yeah.
and I
Just didn't know
probably
that.
didn't
Yeah.
read the fine print, or I wasn't that involved in looking at city ordinance or whatever at that time.
Any other?
I go to have department meetings.
Pardon?
I go to have department meetings we all report to the city manager. The mayor is never there. I really enjoy it because it gives me, a way to interact with the other departments. If they have secret meetings, they ask me to leave, and it's fine with me. I mean,
So do you have a governing board or do you have an advisory?
governing board?
You have a governing board, okay.
Yes, but I enjoy it. I really enjoy it to be part of that body that makes, the city run. I really love it.
Next question. So, if you are involved in the politics of your city, what excites you the most about that? What do you like about being involved in the politics of your city?
Everything. Everything.
Everything?
It helps us serve our community better if we know what's going on at the rec center, or if Public Works is having a special event, then we can help advertise that. We can work together instead of our individual silos.
So like a little teamwork, collaboration, that's the exciting part of being involved in the politics. Good point, good point. Information back and forth.
And I agree with that too, but a lot of the time I would get my information because I attend the council meetings. So I get more information by attending the council meetings and learning about the community that way than all the details of maybe during a staff meeting for another department.
If you have department head meetings, how many of you go to department head meetings? Raise your hand, please. How many of you have their mayor at the department head meetings? Because our mayor never attends our department head meetings.
We don't have
Never.
a city administrator, so.
Oh, okay.
And
So
all
that
of
makes
our,
sense.
all of the politicians are elected and not paid.
Okay. All right. So communication is the best. Did any of you like the politics? I mean, do you
Yes.
talk a little bit about what you like?
Well, the fact that it's how you run a city, how you hear that, how you make decisions, how you develop a future, and you want to be part of that. How, urbanistically, how a city is spent. And while the city is spent urbanistically, that involves the economics of the city, involves the social structure. It's amazing. I feel it's a privilege.
Next question. What scares you the most about being involved in those local politics? And I'll just be real honest with you. What scares me the most about being involved with local politics is losing my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of heads nodding, and it's okay that hi, I'm Robin. And, but this is. I mean, when you start getting involved in those local politics, you start getting those communications about what everybody's doing, and you start standing up and you start working with the rest of those departments as a full partner. Then sometimes it does get sticky. So, how about Lupe?
Robin, I had 2 councilmen call me once when the year started, and they said, can we come and use the library meeting room to discuss things we want to bring up at council meetings? And this was one side of one group, and there was 2 opposing groups. And I said, if the room is open and you want to come in and meet, you're free to do so. And of course, if my city administrator knew about that, I might get yelled at, but I'd say it's open to anyone on Sioux.
That's a really good point. That the library is neutral ground.
Yeah, and so I had no problems with them doing it. They never showed up. And I was scared that I could lose my job.
What does your policy say though about if they're using a meeting room, does it have to be available, open?
Has to be
Open to,
open.
I said, you
Public.
cannot close the doors.
That's why they didn't show
It's
up.
open to the
Yeah,
public.
okay.
Yes.
Exactly. Good point,
Yeah.
Richard.
That's why they didn't show up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because our meeting rooms are the same way. They're open to anyone.
We had the same thing where the city council voted to close a street in Hastings, and there's a group in my and it's in my neighborhood, and there's a group in my neighborhood that are just adamant against it. And of all things, where did they decide to hold their meeting to get their petition signed and all that, but at the library? So I got the look, but I said, thank goodness I had our policy to go back
It's our
and
policy.
say,
That's right.
it's a community forum, these are interested residents that have the right to gather and so forth. I didn't organize it.
Right, but again, we get involved discuss politics on many, many different
Whether you want
levels.
to or not.
Right, so, yeah, exactly, simply because of who we are. Okay. This is for you, yeah, here we go. Do you post personal political statements on your Facebook page? I know library directors that do this on a regular basis, and or library personnel, and I am amazed sometimes about that. And how does that affect your library as neutral community space? What do you think?
It does. You can know. For example, right now in Chadron they're discussing about building a swimming pool, a covered swimming pool, and there are two groups, pro swimming pool, against swimming pool. They're going to have the elections in November. But as a city employee, I think it's my duty to stay out of it. You know, I provide a place where they can discuss it, but I cannot provide my opinion. My job is when we go and we have head department meetings, I provide what I see, you know, and if they need books on a certain subject, if they need my point of view. But
So let me play devil's advocate and say, you know, they're not just going to build a covered swimming pool, they're going to build a covered swimming pool and another little mini library. Now, would you have something to say?
I haven't been in that spot. I am in that spot. I am hired by the board.
Right.
I have my personal opinion of how the library should look, but I have to follow the guidance of the governing board.
Yep.
Your opinion should be reflected at the polling place, not in public.
Go. So, we've had a couple of questions to kind of whet your muscle here and have you think about the whole politics of libraries and city administrations and mayors and governing boards and advisory boards. So we developed some scenarios. Richard, do you want to start
Sure.
the first one?
Sure. Okay, the first one. We tried to shorten these because Robin and I are both somewhat verbose. For those of you who know us, perhaps you understand. So these are shorthand versions, so we'll try to fill in between the pieces if you don't get them. It says, City Council brings up and approves an amendment to the library budget. The item was not on the council agenda. Well, we know that's an open meetings problem already. What can be done politically by the library board about the council's action?
Now, you just kind of ran by that open meeting, but you understand that anything that the city council makes a motion on has to be on the agenda. And this happened, the item was not on the council agenda, a motion was made that directly affected the library. What can be done politically by the library board about that action?
Because if anybody's going to do anything, it has to be the board.
I would go straight to the city attorney.
You'd go straight to the what?
To the city
The
attorney.
city attorney was at the meeting where this happened.
City attorney doesn't know his job.
The city attorney was at the meeting where this happened.
It might be a case where he hopes nobody catches him.
Yeah. That's so obvious.
Yeah.
Well, what can your board do?
That's what we're asking is if this happened in your community, what would you counsel your board to do?
I would have a meeting with the city manager and the board of the library, and the library board, and say, okay, this is happening, it's illegal, so help us, what you suggest. After all, the library, it's a department of the city.
No, not in our community. We have a governing board and our library is not a department of the city.
You
Nor are we
still
seen
are
as-
paid by the city.
We are, but we are not seen as a department. We are not recognized as a department by the city. We do not participate in the city budget meetings. I don't participate in department
So
head meetings.
you don't discuss your budget,
Not with the city.
really?
With your board?
With the board, yes. With the library board that sets the budget, yes.
So does the board have to file something to get on the next city council agenda to make their point or speak or something? I mean, we have public comment.
Pick up the phone.
Let me give you one other piece of information about open meetings, because you guys have worked with this for years, probably know this. And then I want to ask you the question again about what can your board do? Under the open meetings law, with which I am intimate,
Lucky you.
TMI.
yes, it's a sad day. If one of the council members would have said, this was not on the agenda, we cannot take this up, and we certainly cannot take action on it, then that would have scotched it right there. That would have done it. Now, those council members still have a time period during which they can still question that and bring that back, but there is a lead time. I forget it, 120 days or whatever it is. Anyway, but they haven't done that. I don't think they're going to do that. So what can the board do? You said get on the phone. Who would you call?
I'd have my board calling all the council members and reminding them of what they did wrong. There are consequences to that kind of an act.
And then what about the politics of that the next time the library's budget comes up?
When they're wrong, they're wrong.
Yeah,
They
and
can
what
still take
about
money
the
away.
consequences the next time your budget comes up? That's still
If they want to deal without a library, I guess that's their choice.
Well, that's where I guess in my town, that's where the politics come in. Who knows who best?
Yeah.
We pick the board member that knows the city council person the best, that can call and point out, without being accusatory and saying you're trying to hurt the library, say, I believe this was a violation of Open Meetings Act. We need to revisit this. We'd like to see this amendment or this motion put on the agenda so that the library can speak to it, or whoever the library board.
But that's also a very important point why you should have somebody representing the library at that meeting.
They were there.
And they didn't bring it up?
That's the problem with open meeting law, is it?
You can't bring it up because it's a council meeting.
But I'd say, I don't see this item on the agenda.
You can't interject. A
No.
library
Well, I've
board
never
person
been to a
cannot
meeting like
interject
that.
into a city council
Only
meeting.
time is during public meeting, and the
Well, that's what
Open
I'm
Meetings
talking
Act, this is what the Open Meetings Act says. It says the public must be given the opportunity to comment during the meetings, but then it says, not every meeting.
Right.
So if it doesn't have open meetings, if it doesn't have public commentary on that agenda, they don't have to do it, according to an attorney at the Nebraska School Board Association. I would hope that they'd give the opportunity, but I guess the
Yeah.
point that I would make is, in response to everything that you said, is, believe me, this has got to be nuanced. You cannot go in there and take the nuclear option.
Yeah.
They're wrong, but if you tell them they're wrong to their face and shame them before the public, that's the nuclear option, and several other people will die in the library. Or the radiation will kill you if the explosion doesn't.
Even in an open meeting thing, they have to, if they're gonna discuss the budget, they have to open it up to the public, because they're changing the budget. So there are two things here, that they're not inviting the public to comment on the budget change. And they're also, putting something that wasn't on the agenda.
So they doubly screwed up. So they're wrong twice. All
Yes,
right.
they're wrong twice.
That's-
But they made the decision.
But I did like what Amy said about
Yes.
finding
Who
the
knows who?
city council person, finding the
Library.
board member who knows the city council member the best and having a side conversation with them. And maybe that's where that conversation needs to start.
Vicki, let's have one more comment, then we'll go on to another scenario.
Just kind of a question, because I'm not as familiar with this aspect, but it seems that because they acted in the way they acted, is this not then illegal what they did? And that, I'm not sure of the legalities of it. It sounds like it's certainly improper. So therefore, it can't really go forward, so your board member might be able to approach it from that angle that, geez, we need to do this again because we didn't really do it right.
Well, I think, I'm not an attorney, so I can't say this for sure, but unless somebody actually questions that and questions the action, it will stand. Unless a citizen or a council member questions it, and whether it's illegal or not, whether they broke the law or not, is a moot point after it passes that certain number of days. Let's go on to the next scenario, you do that one.
Okay,
Or do you want me to do this?
no, I can do this one. So the state statute says, 51-211, says the library board shall have exclusive control of the construction of any library building. And that, exclusive control of the, construction of any library building. So a go-getter city manager takes control of the library building project with no involvement of the library director, the library staff, or the library board. Now, how would you, as a library director, how could you handle this type of situation with the political city manager here?
Who finances the building? The money, where is coming from the money?
State statute says that the library board shall has exclusive control of the construction.
Okay.
State statutes overdo the city.
But Bonnie walks the walks. Are they having a tax? Are they having donors? It depends a lot. If there is a huge donor, I will start with the donor and say, look what they're doing with your money. If it's mostly financed with the money of the sales tax, I would go to the friends and I would go to the foundation and to the board and say, look, a library project, it's made of many people, and certainly the people around the library have to have a voice. Let's start to be vocal, let's start to go to City Hall and express opinion.
So you're talking about a grassroots type situation, go out and get the friends and the foundation and all those kind of people to go to the city council meeting?
Yes, in my opinion, those old ladies of the friends, I'm sorry, but they really have power.
They do. They probably changed the council member's diaper or something.
So one suggestion is grassroots, to go from the bottom up.
This is a situation that occurred about 8 years ago in a community in which they were having quite a turnover of library directors. That's partially what happened here, but even when they had library directors, they were not involved, and the board was never involved with this.
Well, I'll give you another example of a renovation project right now that is happening in the community where the library board may not even meet with the architect without the city manager there. So,
It's got to be a partnership because most, or I don't know, maybe some of the time that the city is going to own the facility,
Yes.
the building itself.
true.
And funding is going to come from there to some degree, so it's got to be a partnership. I didn't know that first, I didn't know about that state statute, that's kind of interesting.
Oh,
but-
chapter 51s, if you're a governing board, should be your Bible.
And again, you said governing board.
Governing
Yes,
board.
governing board.
Advisory,
Not
yeah.
advisory.
Advisory, of course, the city manager runs the show. So, I mean, there is no, but this was in a governing board community.
If you were in a village, a second-class city, or Lincoln or Omaha, you must have governing library boards. That's in state statute. None of them is advisory. If you're in a first-class city, of which we have about 30 in our state, they have the option of either having an advisory or governing library board. About 20 of them, 22 of them have governing boards, the rest have advisory boards. That's about the breakdown.
Another thing that I would say is if the city manager has time for the library, which usually they don't, in my experience, it means that it's a person that really macromanages, and there are other people in the community that, is doing the same thing. And so maybe pulling the forces of those other groups, individuals, departments, and then, talk maybe with the mayor, with the city council.
Who talked with the mayor?
This group of people, because
Okay.
I'm convinced that a control freak like that is hurting not only a library but other places. So maybe pulling forces, go to the city council and say, look, we have a problem. Can you maybe broker a deal? Can you help us? This person that's a little bit, it's hurting the city because you hurt a city when you start to micromanage at that level.
Let me make one more statement and ask a person in the audience a question about this, because I think it would be very interesting for you guys. Some years ago, there was a library in a different part of the state, I won't say where, and there was such a big hubbub in town. It was a massive hubbub. It was, I won't even go to all the details, but I was sort of involved in it and was dirtied by the same brush that everybody else was. But in this case, what finally happened was they got a new library built. The library is owned. The title to the library is owned by the Library Friends Group. If you can avoid that kind of conflagration, please do. Now, we happen to have Joe Manginelli here, who's the city manager in Columbus, and he and I have worked together over the years, and he is, city managers, he's one of the good guys, I'm telling you that. So I just want to predate that. Joe, what do you think about this question, and how do you think about this whole thing?
Well, I'm happy that Lori, who's a member of our library board, recognized that it is a partnership, that we all must be involved, and that's exactly the process that we're involved in right now to get a new library in Columbus. And we've selected collectively an architect to do feasibility, some renderings and things like that. That was built on staff recommendation, board recommendation, friends recommendations, as well as what we as administration have brought to it. And we had a council member involved there, 2 council members involved in the process. So I think the partnership is critical.
And that's probably the way it should work, but it doesn't always work that way in communities. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, I guess I'll do this one. A service club member, a friend, invites you to a political reception with a gubernatorial candidate. The current governor's there, the mayor and the spouse of the mayor happens to be one of your library friends group members. This library friend brings yard signs to you as the library director to put in your yard, because your yard happens to be on a very busy street in town. Now, you put up the signs. Did you go to the reception in the first place?
How many of you put the signs up in your yard? You put a political sign up that said, vote for X.
I'd say vote for this governor candidate, yes. I
Okay.
will not say vote for the city council candidate,
Okay.
Why would you make that distinction?
because they have some control over what my library might get. But our city does not interfere with our political decisions.
But this friend is either a strong D or a strong R.
And I'm going to start a strong I.
Oh, that's good.
How many of you would put the signs up in your yard, and do you go to this reception? Do you go to this reception supporting a political candidate, knowing that you represent a neutral entity in your community?
I go to the reception and talk about the library, but I don't put the yard signs up.
Okay?
So you don't think
I
going to the
hope you-
reception means that you're for that candidate?
No, I don't think so.
Is it a fundraiser or what kind of?
Yeah, I mean, there's,
Oh, no, it's a come and meet and greet, it's barbecue,
Yeah.
come on, meet the
and I hope the other guy
You
invites
should
me
go
to his.
and talk about your library and
Yeah.
advocate.
Whether you're strong R or D. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's advocacy going out and speaking to
So,
whoever.
so if I go to this reception and it's a strong one or the other, and that individual then comes back to me next week and says, wow, I was really glad you were there. I'm really excited that you're whatever, an R or D or whatever. Are you going to get in trouble down the road here because they think you are supporting of their political party or not? Or do you think that's just your own personal preference?
I don't get too terribly into politics. My director kind of abandoned me. She's supposed to be here, so I'm here gathering information. That's kind of the way I look at that. You tell them, okay, I'll go with you, but I don't discuss my politics publicly. I'm not personally advocating for one side or the other. I'm here to represent and try and get people interested in the library solely. If you go, I would choose not to go. I would say thank you for the invitation, but I don't do this.
I feel bad for every director that doesn't get to have individual liberty
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly right.
And where did they sign up for that? My goodness. I mean, you can still have a neutral territory at work in your
Yes.
public library, but you're still a person.
You know, our city
You get
administrator
a vote.
told us he doesn't care if we've got a sign on the back of our car who we're gonna vote for, because that's not his business. But at the library, we can't sit there and tell people across the way, we want you to vote for this person because they support her.
Well, and I work in the public schools, but I'm a friend, and so I've come to this as representing our friends group. But in our public school situation, when we put out bond issues for the school, we can't use school time as a public school employee to say, please vote for our bond. But I can certainly put a sign in my yard that says support the bond issue.
But that's not a partisan issue. What's different about this is a partisan issue.
Yeah.
This is going to be one party or another, or a third. But you've got the extra wrinkle of your friend of the library being married to the mayor. What kind of politics, small p, does that add to
If
the
it's
mix?
a real friend, you can have an honest discussion and say, look, it's part of my job to keep the library neutral so that everybody can come and feel confident. Okay, and being able to not feel the pressure, the library is this color or that color. I would go and meet for the governor because that is important. But the fact that I meet the governor doesn't mean I'm going to marry the governor. And about the signs, personally, I don't like signs because I'm a private person. I don't want people to know,
Yeah.
But it's food for
where,
thought.
yeah.
It's for you to think about some of these scenarios.
Let's go to another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
City manager and one library board member that are friends with the small f, not with the big F, appear to be making decisions about the library without taking these to full board or the library director. So basically, we've got the city manager and a library board member having coffee and making decisions about the library without taking these to the full board. What might you do about this situation? And how would you determine the truth of this situation?
My question is, how do these decisions come to fruition without the director's
Yeah.
involvement? I mean, how do you, I don't know, say purchase a computer
Well, this
without...
is a real situation. I won't say
Yes.
where.
As a director, I would take it to my board first and maybe address that, ask the person that is friends.
And in this situation, the city clerk is the chair of the library board.
Perfect storm. Richard, that was unfair.
Isn't that,
That's the truth.
isn't that the conflict of interest?
Oh, big time.
So is it allowed? Is there a law?
It
against
happens. We talked about this stuff before. What's real? What can you actually do something about? This is a real situation. There's been a meeting.
Resign.
Resign, yeah. Find another job. Yeah, this one is a tough one. As a library director, I would probably talk to the board president, and I don't know if the board president is that one library board member, is it?
That's the city manager.
No, the library board.
The city manager and one library board member.
The library
Is this
board
the-
member who is her friend
Is
also a part-time staff member at the library.
Oh, next scenario, this is too.
No, it's true. I'm telling you, I'm just telling you this. I'm not telling you this to scare you, but I'm telling you these things occur in reality.
Those are small town Nebraska.
It's not in the city ordinance that a library board member cannot be a paid staff member?
The only thing is, if you look at the state statutes, it says in chapter 51, the mayor and council members may not be members of the library board. It says nothing about the city manager. It says nothing about, in fact, staff members of the library.
Or the mayor's wife, or or the city
Yeah.
council members' wives, or anything like that. So that's part of why we're having this discussion today, is for you to be aware of all of these little nuances that can sometimes, like when you hire somebody that's a part-time person that happens to be the wife of somebody, you could be setting yourself up for situations down the road that you don't even foresee.
That's what, 6 years ago when I moved to Hastings, I told people that, I was working with, like, I want a Hastings family tree. Because everybody seems connected to somebody. Somehow, I didn't know this person was this person's friend or babysat for that person when they, or like you said, changed their diaper when they were little. And I'm like, I'm constantly feel like I'm stepping in something like, oh, I didn't know you two went to wine country over the weekend and talked about all this and,
But even without all those gory details, I
And
was
that's
giving.
that's a town of 25,000.
I know. What would you do about the situation, or how could you determine the truth?
Okay, the decisions, if it's a governing library board, the decisions are made by vote with a majority.
No. I gotta stop you right there because in this situation, we just had a city manager and our library board president make a decision that was not, and this has nothing to do with this scenario, but was not taken to the board, was not taken to the library director. They got together and had lunch, and it was a done deal.
Doesn't that
I'm sorry, that was the mayor. It was not the city
Isn't
manager.
that kind
And
of
I saw
decision supposed
Richard.
to be made in the
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you call it.
That's what I call
It was
Richard.
not the
Yeah,
city
no.
manager. It was the mayor and the library board person.
This is why I get to practice law without a license. It's great. It's fun. I'll go to jail someday.
What I did here is I went back to the library board member who told me about it and said, tell me more about this. Tell me how this happened. And then I got more information. As I got more information, I called another board member and said, are you aware of this? And they were not. So just by calling and saying, do you know that this happened? It kind of started the communications between the board members, and then they started talking about it, and it became their discussion instead of my discussion, where I didn't need to be in this discussion. The board needed to be in the discussion. And that's, as a director, that's kind of where it needs to be.
Do this one, Jimmy.
Okay, the city worked with a consultant to write the
Long-range
long-range plan. Thank you. Richard threw LRP and said, I know what that is. The library board was not invited or involved to write city, to be a part of the city's long-range plan. I mean, yeah, there were open meetings, but they were not invited to like the department head table where this was really talked about. So something happened in the community and the library board decided that they really needed to move forward as well. So they hired a consultant to investigate the library space needs.
Which is within their power.
Which is within their power to do. But because the library board, which had open meetings and included the mayor and the city planner in the discussions, the library and board were slammed by the city because everybody didn't get an email. All the department heads didn't get an email about this. This library space needs consultation. And now, the city council won't even look at the library space needs. No, they won't even look at it because they did not vet it. The city did not vet this library space needs. So it will not be in the long range plan. So how do we bring the library strategic plan into step with the city long range plan? How do you amend those
This isn't a na-na-na-na-na, we're gonna get you back kind of situation so much as it is, how do you go forward positively? How do you do that? That's kind of what the question is.
I would want to talk to the consultant.
The consultant for what?
For who's helping the city write the long range plan.
Why? I mean, they're just hired by the city. They just do what the city tells them.
Right.
I would probably go to the city and explain to them how we want to be part of, how the library can assist the city in their strategic long-range planning and help them understand that better.
Right. That's a good point. How the library wants to do the same thing as the city does and would like to be part of that whole partnership process.
So get on the city council's agenda and do a presentation or at least an explanation of your ideas and help to bring some togetherness
sing Kumbaya.
I think they need to understand that we want to do that. We want to be partners.
Is the library board your governing library board? Governing. It's a governing. Again, if it was advisory board, there would be no problem because
They have no place in hiring the consultant.
Yeah.
Right,
or
right, yeah.
You'd still be left.
Yeah, they would still be left out, but they, they wouldn't.
Robin, do you want to say anything until we need to close it up?
No, I just want to, I would encourage you to think about the big P politics in decisions that you make, in your daily work and working. The whole thing is, the other big P is partnerships. We really want to be a partner with the city. But sometimes that politics just gets tiny. So I hope you've enjoyed talking about this today. And if you have any other questions, you can contact Richard or myself.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.